without the endless bridge construction, traffic around here can be a nightmare, sometimes even walking's faster. In August of 2008, Beijing will be flooded with over 1 million visitors. So, will her transit system be able to keep up with the pack? In this episode, Beijingers with plates ending in odd numbers can only drive on certain days of the 2008 Summer Games. Find out why. Then, in a hurry, during the Olympics and peak traffic times, the only fast, reliable way to get around Beijing is the subway. Plus, taxi drivers in Beijing are required to study English. It's all part of being ready for their Olympic guests. And if you really want to understand China, forget the cab ride and take a city bus. All coming up on Beijing Are You Ready? There are lots of ways to get around in Beijing during the Olympics. Some get you there quickly, but offer no view of the city. Some take more time than you'd like and have you dodging traffic. Some cost a little more money than you might want to spend. But there's one way to travel that gets you there and lets you travel the way the average Beijinger does.
我碰到过的外国人很少。
In Beijing, if you really want to understand the culture, be brave. Forgo the cab ride to your destination and take a city bus. Hey, this is the most populated country in the world. Experience the real China and literally rub shoulders with the locals. Almost 4 million locals ride the bus every day. And you have your choice of almost 600 bus routes in the city. The cost to ride? About a quarter, sometimes as low as 13 cents. Beijingers go to work by bus. It's also a good way for tourists to see the city. You're up higher, the windows are bigger, and you can take your time sightseeing and people watching.
下一站百万庄，请您从后门在里面下车。需要买票商，请您买票。The next stop is 百万庄. Please get ready.
Visitors from American cities may notice something missing from Beijing buses: graffiti and, well, dirt. The buses are cleaned after every run, several times a day. The time of day you may want to avoid is rush hour. Buses are often packed. Getting off of them may take some planning.
So in order to kind of get ready for your stop, you kind of have to get ready 2 or 3 stops beforehand and inch your way to the door, and then push your way out just to get off the bus.
It's only going to get more crowded when the Olympics come to town in 2008, which is why China is spending more than $6 billion over the next 5 years to expand and improve bus service, both before the Games and after. Some improvements are already done. This is the Beijing Zoo Public Transportation Junction. It's a 10-platform bus interchange where passengers can transfer to different lines. It was completed in 2004, just 3 years after Beijing learned it would be hosting the Olympic Games. Today, 50,000 people use this station every day. So many people that a system is needed for transferring to other bus routes safely and efficiently. How's it done? You get off your bus, then go down the stairs, which lead to a massive underground sorting floor. Find your bus line down here, then head up the stairs and onto the platform where you board your bus. The new bus station is ready for the Olympics. But what about the people who make it all happen?
What do you do?
Bus driver.
What do you do?
Bus driver.
Yes.
Bus drivers are learning English. What is your name?
My name is Ma Zhao.
English is a tough language to learn, especially if you don't speak a Romance language with a Roman alphabet.
我就觉得音标什么，还有语法什么的，学的不太准。
But the drivers knew they'd have to do more than drive a bus when they took the job.
因为在我刚参加工作的时候，就要求用双语报站，所以我就想到了，以后在车上遇到外国人会怎么办？然后我们现在就开始学英语，因为我们现在每个星期有2天都来这儿学英语，而且呢，08年奥运会又在我们自己的国家举办，我觉得这个是中国人的一个骄傲，每个中国人都应该会。
Let's put Ma Zhao to the test.
I want to go here. How do I get there?
7 stop,
How much money?
1元。
Well, it's a good start. She's got a couple months more to practice until the Olympics arrive.
Will you be ready to speak English when the Olympics come?
Yes.
在一站终点站，动物园，请您带好随身物品，带好准备下车。The next stop is Beijing Zoo.
If you think Los Angeles traffic is bad, how about this? Beijing at rush hour. It's a parking lot. There's only one fast, reliable way to get around during peak traffic hours, the subway.
If you want to take the subway, look for this logo. I'm at the Xidan station and I want to go to Tiananmen Square. First thing to do is buy a ticket.
Descending into a subway in a foreign country with a completely different language seems like a recipe for getting lost. But you can speak English when you buy your ticket.
One ticket for Tiananmen Square?
The price is 2 yuan, or 15 cents. What about getting on the right train? Easy. The signs are written in Chinese and English. Now all that's left to do is wait about 1 minute and relax. Relax even more knowing this is what's going on above you.
The only way to beat Beijing's gridlock traffic is to go underground.
Beijing's underground subway has an interesting history. Construction began in 1965, and it was built as part of the national defense. During the late 1960s, China feared a Soviet invasion. The subway could move 5 to 6 divisions of Chinese soldiers under the city. When the threat ended, the Beijing subway was put to more practical use. It opened to the Chinese public in 1977. Foreigners were allowed to ride in 1980. Today, over 2 million people ride the Beijing subway every day. At rush hour, trains run almost every minute. If you've ever ridden mass transit in the United States, you should feel comfortable in Beijing's subway. The stations are similar to the San Francisco BART system. And Beijing's subway cars feel like newer versions of New York City's cars, but they can be just as crowded. The crowds will increase during the Olympics, but so will subway service and routes.
This map shows the existing Beijing subway system. Here's Tiananmen Square, and here are the new Olympic venues. You may be asking yourself, well, how can I get to the Olympics on the subway? There's a new line coming in. It starts down here, goes through the center of town, right up to the Olympic venues and on to Olympic Park. It'll be ready in September of 2007. By the time the Olympics hit the city, there will be 5 new lines, making a total of 9 lines running 125 miles. When Olympic visitors get on the subway, they'll probably discover it's the fastest and most reliable way to get to the Games. But wait, what if you're on a crowded train? How do you know if your stop is coming up?
王府井就要到了。The next station is 王府井。
When you're in a hurry, the subway's just the ticket. You know, riding the subway in Beijing is just like riding the subway in New York, San Francisco, or Washington, D.C. And I didn't have to speak a word of Chinese. And here we are, Tiananmen Square. Taxis navigate traffic anarchy, looking for fares. But this parking lot is packed with empty cabs. Why? Because taxi drivers here are taking mandatory English classes to get ready for the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Welcome, China, thank you, driver, 颐和园 Summer Palace, 长城 Great Wall, good afternoon, good evening.
Obviously, today's instructor isn't a professional English teacher. He's a fellow cab driver, but he's doing his best to help with simple phrases.
What time, what day 就代表哪天什么时间。
If your first language is Chinese, English is hard to learn. But these drivers attend class every Saturday.
How is it dealing with people who don't speak Chinese?
会经常碰到一些国际友人，因为现在中国对外开放嘛，来中国的外国人很多，所以我们会经常碰到这方面难题。我们现在也正在学习英语。
And how are your English classes going? Do you like it?
还可以吧。我们现在每个星期都要抽出最少1天至2天的时间要学习英语。我觉得对我们这个职业，对我们这个行业，包括今后的奥运都是非常有好处的。
After English class, these cab drivers are ready to hit the streets of Beijing for another shift. Maybe they'll get to try out a few new phrases.
One helpful phrase might be "no smoking, please," since Beijing just passed a law banning smoking in taxis. There are more than 60,000 cabs in Beijing. They come in a lot of shapes and colors, and finding one is pretty easy. Getting around in a Beijing taxi is a bargain compared to American or European cabs. The fare is 10 yuan for the first 3 kilometers, or $1.30 for around 2 miles. From there, it's another 2 yuan for every kilometer, or about 43 cents for every additional mile. A taxi ride from Beijing's airport to a luxury downtown hotel averages about $15. You can also negotiate to rent a cab for the entire day and leave the city for destinations like the Great Wall. daily rates run about $70. With the U.S. putting pressure on China to up the value of its currency against the dollar, a taxi ride could cost you more when you're here for the Olympics. Within city limits, taxis can take you to check out any of Beijing's historic sites, like the Forbidden City, Tiananmen Square, or the Temple of Heaven. The challenge in taking a taxi may be communicating with your driver.
I'm going to take a taxi to the Temple of Heaven.
Good morning.
Good morning. Temple of Heaven, please. If your cab driver doesn't understand your English, you can bring a card with Chinese characters written on it or a tourist map.
Okay.
This is the license for the cab. It tells you that you're with a legitimate cab company. Here's the meter. It's right in the radio console in this cab. And so far we have 10 renminbi on our fare. And in China, it's okay to sit in the front seat, and why wouldn't you? It's a better view. Here's something you don't see people in China doing very often. They don't buckle up. I was impressed, though. The cab driver did. If you think jumping in a Beijing taxi may be nerve-wracking, don't worry. You'll hear a comforting voice.
Hello, passengers. Welcome to take Beijing taxi, and your advice on our service is appreciated.
The first thing that will strike you about the ride is just how crazy Beijing traffic is. Think of a good cab driver as a traffic martial artist. He avoids other cars, bicycles, and pedestrians, and he maintains a zen-like calm while getting you to your destination.
What's it like driving in crazy Beijing traffic?
还可以吧，还可以。
Cab fares in China are just like those in the United States. You not only pay according to distance, but you pay according to the time that you spend in the cab as well.
Once at your destination, it's time to pay up. Just pay what's on the meter. Tip if you'd like, but taxi drivers don't expect it. The locals don't tip.
Okay. Stop.
Okay. When you get to your destination, check the meter and pay. Ours is 26. Be sure to get a receipt after your cab ride. This will not only tell you how much you spent, that we spent 26 RMB, but it has the phone number of the cab driver on there, and you can call him in case you forget anything in the cab.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Destination reached, Temple of Heaven. Temple of Heaven Park is one of Beijing's historic treasures. It's where Chinese emperors would pray for bountiful harvests. It's easy to spend several hours here.
I'm all done seeing the Temple of Heaven, and what's nice about taking a cab is you get in, you go, and you're done. Now I'm off to see Sanli Twin. Sanli Twin, please. 你好. The number one piece of advice when speaking to a cab driver in China, use simple English. And secondly, speak slowly.
Communication is the key to a successful taxi ride in Beijing. Drivers really try to meet you halfway, and they hope to be ready for new visitors during the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
在此之前很长时间，我们很多司机就已经开始学习英语了。我想2008年的时候应该 OK。
When you don't have time to walk or the energy to figure out the public transportation system, Beijing taxis are your best bet. Bus buses and subways help ease the chaos on Beijing's streets. Still, if you granted a Beijinger 3 wishes, chances are one would be, make Beijing's gridlock traffic disappear.
When they say Beijing's on the move, they're not talking about the traffic. With over 2 million cars, 63,000 taxis, buses that make U-turns on city streets, and vans that drive and park on the sidewalk, it can take an hour and a half to go 10 miles.
As China's economy continues to boom, so does its traffic problem. One student from Norway, who's been living in Beijing for 6 months, gave us this advice.
I think no matter what you do, you should never ever take a taxi at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because you will be stuck in traffic forever.
A decade ago, most Chinese could not imagine owning their own car. Nowadays, with incomes on the rise, more and more Beijingers can afford them. So they're shifting gears from 2 wheels to 4. China is now the world's 2nd biggest and fastest growing vehicle market. Over 1,000 new cars and 500 used cars are sold daily in Beijing. And foreign luxury cars are increasingly visible on the streets. To many, a car is more than a means of transportation. It's a symbol of freedom and status. But there's a price for progress. That's why the government fights an ongoing battle to protect the environment and to keep the traffic flow flowing. To ease congestion in time for the 2008 Games, the Beijing Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games put together the Transport, Construction, and Traffic Management Plan. The plan promises to add 200 miles of road in Beijing, including 35 miles of urban expressway. The urban expressway system is the backbone of Beijing's roadway transportation. It consists of 5 major ring roads circling the city and a network of highways connecting them. Just as you would count the rings of a tree trunk to figure out the age of the tree, Beijing's growth can be determined by the number of its ring roads. And the bullseye? Tiananmen Square in the Forbidden City. The most recently completed loop is about 9 to 12 miles from the city center. The construction plan's additional expressway miles will make it easier for people to enter the city. But that also means more cars piling into an already congested central district, turning it into a virtual parking lot during rush hour. Actual parking lots, on the other hand, are one of the missing features of Beijing. Many buildings, especially older ones, were designed without cars in mind. In fact, the city is short 1 million parking spaces by international standards. Now, parking lots are a must for new developments, like this one. The shift to car culture also means more shopping malls and large grocery stores. Mega stores, once unthinkable in Beijing, are becoming ordinary. The city is also building free or low-cost commuter parking lots. That way, drivers can park near the 4th or 5th rings and take public transportation to the city center. Come game time, the improved infrastructure will help ease traffic. But the Beijing Olympics Committee isn't counting on this alone. They promised to reduce the traffic flow in the city by 25% during the Games. That will mean 1 million fewer cars on the road. Beijing's plan to reduce traffic was tested in August 2007, prohibiting cars with certain license plates from driving altogether. License plates ending in odd and even numbers alternated days. That resulted in 1.3 million fewer cars a day entering the city. Similar traffic restrictions will be in place during the 2008 Summer Olympics. And following in the footsteps of previous hosts, Sydney and Atlanta, they'll ban local citizens from driving private cars to Olympic venues.
If the highway were this jammed, you'd never be on time for the opening ceremonies. Problem solved. Just like other host cities, Beijing will dedicate an entire lane to Olympic-only traffic.
A special traffic management center is dedicating 130 miles as Olympic traffic-only lanes. That way, the athletes and officials can be sure to get to the events on time. But once the Olympics move on and these express lanes return to the masses, Beijing's residents are hoping some of the improvements will be long-lasting.
That's it for this edition of Beijing Are You Ready? Here's a look at what's coming up on the next episode.
On the next episode, Olympic athletes need clean air to compete in Beijing, one of the world's most polluted cities. See how China's best scientific minds are meeting that challenge. And dread taking out the garbage? Well, imagine having to deal with 16,000 tons of it daily. Then meet Beijing locals as they relax in one of Beijing's new green spaces, a byproduct of China's Olympic cleanup campaign. That's all coming your way on the next Beijing Are You Ready?
Thanks for watching. I'm Mary Windishar, and I'll see you next time.
哪里都是轻轻自由的味道，荣誉梦想。在这里全部实现。One more nation come together.